So in Kinesic elements, we talked about all the categories of emblems, illustrators, regulators, and adapters, being the fourth one. And adapters is kind of the category that people who study these kinds of things came up with to put everything else in that wouldn't fit into emblems or illustrators or regulators. And it's stuff that we do for the most part that really doesn't have much of a meaning that's tied to that, just like scratching your face or your eye, or maybe you got an itchy nose. And it on the surface, on its presentation, it doesn't really mean anything, okay, other than you had an itch to scratch. What's interesting, though, is that the body's physiology, when it becomes escalated, has a tendency to weed out some of these types of affect manifestations, these adaptive manifestations. When we become heightened, or we feel like we're being threatened, or we start becoming escalated, we have we have a limbic system that's going to go through and respond to that. Limbic system might work with, and I'm trying to remember this correctly, with cortisol. We might have a fear-based response that's going to have an adrenaline dump that's going to go through and affect us physiologically as well. Well, both of these will go through and have certain type of physiological adapters that manifest. For adrenaline, it makes your face itch. And so while I'm talking to a subject, for example, and they're getting really deep within their deception as a manufacturer even more, and they start to go through an itch. And for some reason, women, this happens more to you than it does to men. Okay, not sure why. And again, I think because there's that tighter connection between the deed of lying and feeling bad about it. They manifest more of this adrenaline-induced itching than men do. They don't notice it. And it's all around the face, typically under the chin, back of the ear kind of thing. And it gets involved. I watched one individual that I was deposing. She must have touched her face a couple of dozen times just within 2 or 3 questions. And afterwards I asked her, in fact I showed her a video and said, "Did you ever realize you were scratching your face?" She had no idea. It was that disconnected there. So on the surface, it seems like an adapter, but it starts repeating itself and it starts to crawl around this area of the neck as it becomes manifest. The adapter goes into a psychological and then a physiological display that they are indeed heightened on some level, that there's some manifestation going on. There are other adapters that it's not really manifest, that have to do with physiological manifestations of an escalated heart rate and an escalated respiratory rhythm. They're breathing more short, shallow breaths, and as a result, they might yawn more, or they might sigh more, or they might get into what's called pursed lip breathing. You've done this. You've worked out. As you try to catch your breath, you're blowing against your lips. So you're getting into what's called pursed lip breathing. And what that does is it creates a back pressure on your lungs, and it holds them open long enough to get more of that bad air out, right? Well, when we're breathing shallow and rapid, like we might when we're worried that we might be caught in the lie that we're telling, we're not getting rid of that bad air. And as a result, the body kicks in and says, "Oh, we're starting to get hypoxic. It's time to go through and get rid of the bad air and get some more O2 working into our system." So we're going to kick out a big old sigh, blow it against the lips, right? Or we're going to yawn, or we're going to get into that pursed lip breathing, okay? So again, on the surface, while these look like just adaptive behaviors, they're not. They start to become psychological and then physiological manifestations that the subject is becoming escalated. Let's see, there was one more. It might be the voice box tightening while you're trying to cut a video. I don't know if that's the case or not. All right, this is kind of long as it is. We're at 4 minutes 50. I'm trying to keep these under 6 minutes. Let me see if there's any other types of adapters that we might be talking about. Watering eyes certainly can become that, and we go through and we wipe that away. It becomes an emotional adapter. It might be the case there. But we never know if maybe the room is too dry and the eyes are watering as a response to that. Unless we know what their baseline is, the watering eye might not have any kind of manifestation at all. Some people talk about the nose itching. There's some kind of a twitch there that might be happening with that, touching the nose. Again, depends on the baseline. Because if they don't normally touch their nose and then they get into all kinds of behavior that goes that way, that's an indication more of self-consciousness of what their nonverbal behavior is doing, or they're afraid that they have a booger going in and out there, who knows with what's happening. Touching ourselves, folding our arms or up on the shoulders, that kind of adapter might be an indication that we're closing off. We're closing off at the ankles, crossing our legs, or at the shoulders as we cross that way. It might look like we're just getting comfortable when in fact we might be shutting down there as well. Okay, we'll leave it at that. What kind of adapters can you come up with? There are all kinds. There are hundreds of them out there. These are just kind of the main manifestations that I've seen on a regular basis. Okay? All right, let's see what's going to come up next. We'll get into oculesics, okay? Eye behavior. That'll be fascinating. That'll